Hi, Malik Afegbua. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you.
So, how did you start? How did you go from being a video producer, owning your own production company, to being in the AI space and experimenting with AI to make all these images?
Um, it's all connected to what I do. I'm a storyteller. Apart from owning a production company, everything I do, the backbone for everything I do is storytelling. And when it comes to the films, the commercials, documentaries, the virtual reality experiences, and then the art, everything has a story behind it. So, and that is how I always look for many different mediums to tell my stories, and which is why I kind of dabble with tech. I add tech to elevate the processes of storytelling, and that's why I play with AI.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, how did you come out with the software?
So, like I said, I always do research to find, innovative ways. And 6 years ago, I started working with virtual reality, which is I was looking for more immersive ways to tell stories. That led me, to artificial intelligence about 2 years ago, because I was looking for other means and mediums to be able to reimagine or make processes faster in terms of workflow, in terms of getting the particular kinds of results. And about 2 years ago, I studied how some people were using AI to create generative artworks and certain things in installations, and I started to do more research about that. Earlier last year, it was open source for some people to actually use this technology, because I follow this tech every time I have access to, or I'm privy to certain information of when certain things come out. So I just apply for the beta, and when I get accepted, I could test, which is what happened. I've been testing all this AI softwares for almost a year before I started even putting it in public. It was just me experimenting on ways to actualize certain things using, this medium. Yeah.
When people talk about AI, I mean, at this point, it has become a buzzword. People don't really understand what it's about, how it works.
Yeah.
I'm more interested in how the whole process of actually making these images work.
So there are many different ways. The way these AI softwares work, you could just put in a prompt, and you could get a random image. That's a way of doing it. There's another way in which where you are looking for specific results, and those specific results will have to go through many other processes. For instance, I use what I did as an example. I work with three different softwares, or I won't even call them softwares, they're engines. Stable Diffusion, Disco Diffusion, and Midjourney. However, when you put in certain prompts in this thing, it gives you back random things, but I didn't want that to happen. So what I did was, what I first of all thought about what I wanted to do. Then from there, I thought about the world. I thought about the characters, what this character is doing, what are the actions, what they're wearing, and what's the art direction behind it, what kind of composition are we going to have in that set, what kind of lighting. And that's all because I have a filmmaking background, so I was always putting that into anything I do. And the moment I found what I wanted to do, I started making building more variations off of that. So I take what the AI gives me according to what's close to what I want, put it into Photoshop, make some variations on Photoshop, put it back into AI, make more variations of that until I actually get what I want. And it was a different process, but for any other person that wants to do it, all you need to do is just go and type a prompt and you get something. But because I'm being specific about what I want, I have a particular process.
So what type of prompts? What's the phrase, the prompts that you type to get?
I wouldn't say it's one prompt. So like I said, I thought about many different avenues. Many different things that had to do with the picture, the world, which was the runway, which was the space where people are, the characters, the elderly people, what are they doing, how are they looking at you, what's the pose, what are they wearing, what's the inspiration behind that. So all these things that I've spoken about all have different prompts that you have to use, and the way you have to speak to the machine for it to understand what you're saying. So if I tell you a prompt now, you're going to get something random. But the good thing about it is the AI learns from us, and it learns from data. So everything I've done, it already has that data. So if I give you a prompt to go and put now, you probably get something similar to what I've done, because that data is already out there. But before I did it, it wasn't out there. So I had to train the machine. And when that happens, it's actually all across board. That's why today you might see some that are kind of similar to mine, because either that they use the same kind of prompt because it's open source, or they use my pictures as inspirations to get it. So it keeps getting better and better. Yeah.
So when you were talking about giving the AI prompts and the AI learning from you.
Yeah.
I remember that in an interview that you had done, you had said that you also learn from the AI.
Yeah.
How do you learn from the AI, and what have you learned from the AI?
So there's a way you have a conversation with it that you get specific results, and you need to understand these things. There's certain keywords, certain codes, certain ways that you have to write it to get particular results. For instance, if I wanted to get a constant face every time, there's a way I'll do it. There are keywords I put there to get a constant face every time. If I want to get different variations of a particular design, there's a way. So I learned all these things by trial, errors, experiment, reading on forums, researching about the programs behind it, and always just following through with everything. And whenever I try it, I always have lots of results. And what I put out there was, like, for instance, imagine I have 5,000 pictures and I put out the 5,001 pic, like the one I just created that morning. So that's how much I've been doing it. You understand? So I actually understand how to get specific results. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I'm getting a sense that you do want to tell us what these prompts are.
I could share prompts with you because it's open source. So for instance, you can say elderly African man on the runway.
And just insert that.
That's a prompt, but you're going to get something random. So if I wanted to make it more specific, I could say wearing this type of attire. Okay. More specifically, I speak about the lighting, tungsten, volumetric, many things depending on what I want. You understand?
Yeah.
And for me to make that come to life, there are other keywords that I put there that would make you look a certain way, either to look realistic, to look like a comic, or to look like a 3D thing. All these things are stuff you actually have to understand before actually approaching it.
Absolutely. I want to talk about intellectual property and in the artificial intelligence space. But let's talk a bit about the collection itself. Now you have two out. Fashion show for seniors, which went viral, and the other one, fictions, which is also critically acclaimed. So what inspired the fashion? Tell us a bit about the fashion show for seniors and what inspired it.
I have a series called the Elder Series, and that is Elder Series is putting elderly people in situations where you normally not see them. There's a perception we have about the elderly in society, and it's marginalized. And what I wanted to do was shine a light that these people actually still exist, and see them in a particular way you would normally not see them. Like in a fashion show at the beach, doing all that. That's the main idea of setting up that. So I have other series that has to do with that. So the fashion show was one of that. Because I've got them in other things that I've not even released yet. But the one I released was the fashion show. And the fictional tribe, because I'm a filmmaker, like I said, we all have, myself and my wife, we write films, and those films that we write are very ambitious films in terms of how to produce them. We need massive studios, so I needed a way to reimagine some of these ideas. That's where that came from, and that's just one. That's like the least story that we have compared to all the other ones that we have. So that was where that came from in terms of imagining a fictional civilization that lived 250,000 years ago, and they're African and they're intelligent and they're very advanced. What could have, what happened? Just try and say, oh, we're actually powerful people, and there's an underlying message with that as well as black people. So there are many layers to it, but it's when we're actually done with the film that you will now see where we're going to with it.
So Ungochola is going to be having a film.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
What is that going to look like?
Yes.
So is it going to be like animation?
No, actual film.
With real life characters.
Yeah, actual film. High budget actual film. So if you're thinking Hollywood and the kinds of sets they build and the kinds of costume they have, that's what you should think about when it comes to Ungochola. That's the kind of conversations I'm having.
I just have to ask, how will you pay for that in Nigeria, where we don't, you know what I mean?
So, thankfully, the work I did is worldwide. So, I've been speaking to a bunch of people in many different countries, even with Hollywood as well, about it. So, it's not just about. That's why I said when we write ambitious stories, we're writing stories not thinking that we're Nigerians or Africans or suppressed. We're writing it for the world, just as black people, and that's how we think. So if we want to write a story, I'm not going to think about Nollywood. I'm going to think about the world, at large, and not the perception they have of us and what kind of stories we're going to put out there. So if it's going to cost me $100 million, we'll do it for $100 million, and we're going to get the money to do it, because that's the kind of conversation we're having with people right now about it.
So good luck with that. Just to talk a bit about Nollywood, since you're part of it, people have said that the acting has gotten better, cinematography has gotten better.
Yeah.
But the story, many people are like, we're not so sure. What do you think is going on? And
it's still a young, whether you like it or not, it's still a young industry. We're still learning.
It's been around since the 90s.
Yeah, but it's still relatively young when you compare to Hollywood, that's been around since the early 1800s. And when you think about actually 1800s, not even 900, it goes further back. And when you think about how far they've come before the first camera that was built, up until how they've, when they do, like, what's the word? I don't want to use the word film trick. There's a word for it. They've perfected different skills in filmmaking. They've innovated different ways of making films over the years, and even created cameras that didn't exist just to, create a film. That's how evolved they've been. And when you say we've been around since the 90s, that's not even close to 10% of what the world, in terms of America and China, have been in that industry. So we're very young, and we are following through with what we're learning from the Western societies in terms of how to create films and how to tell stories that resonate to the world. So that being said, there's space to get better, and we don't have the budgets these people have for their films. So I'd say we're in a good place, and we're going to get better for sure. Yeah.
So last question in Hollywood, and we'll move on.
Yeah.
So what would you say is inhibiting us from getting to that next level?
I wouldn't say anything is inhibiting us. I'll say we're growing, and we're going to grow into it.
Absolutely.
Yes.
That's very politically correct. So let's talk about intellectual property.
Yeah.
Your images themselves look, when you see them, you think this is something that is from a runway, and they look very familiar, so to speak. How do you navigate being able to say, well, because I was the one who gave the AI this, the prompt, and he created this, it's mine.
So what I need you to understand is, when it comes to AI, it's a tool.
Okay. And
just like any tool, you can use that ethically, you can use that unethically. And it's how you use it that matters. I can say I want to create a painting that looks like a Van Gogh. I want to create something that looks like a Rembrandt. You can see the similarities there. However, I could create something that doesn't exist. And I could create a world that is actually all imaginary and is not there anywhere. That's the two different sides of it. So you need to understand that the way everything evolves and grows, before you understand, like right now, people are still trying to understand it when it comes to IP, when it comes to the ethics, when it comes to copyright. But there's a place for it if you're using it the right way. Yeah. The fashion show is nothing. There's nothing like the fashion show anywhere in the world. Yeah. Anywhere online. So I literally had to find ways to make those references myself. But now that it's there, you start seeing things that look like that. So that's the kind of thing I'm trying to create. Like, for instance, in Controller People, I was inspired by the Wakanda soldiers, and that was even after I had a conversation with Ruth. What inspired those things, and that inspiration, and I even took it further. To bring everything, and I say, okay, let me create, storyline with this. I didn't use Wakanda's pictures. I used the idea of it to build off of that. I could have said, okay, let me take their pictures and create Wakanda-like things. It's going to show me stuff that looks exactly like that. But the idea is, it's just as artists, when you're painting, you have inspiration of something from what you see, from a picture, and you paint those inspirations. That's the same way I look at it, and if you understand where you are in that space and you know how to use it, the ethics side of it will be all based on the user and the person that actually accepts it. So in the past, I've experimented with it when I first started with AI. Or show me a painting of Lagos, make it look like a Van Gogh. I've seen that, but I'm not going to put it out there to sell it. I'm not going to say, oh, this is my work. But I could probably say the fashion show is my work because it never existed from anywhere. Do you understand?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You're talking about Ruth Carter, who is costume designer for Black Panther, and then she commented on your work, said this is so dope.
Yeah.
did that feel like a validation coming from someone who is so well established in the industry?
If I was looking for validation, it would have been, yeah. But I've been in the industry for so long that I understand validation doesn't mean anything. When you're a creative person, your creative work is your work, regardless of who validates it or not. That's what I actually personally understand. Your personal expression is either you take it or you don't. You understand it or you don't. So I was happy that she put that. We had other conversations afterwards, in private as well. So I would say it as it would be an excitement for me, not a validation. Because it could be anybody's opinion or perception. Like, for instance, I had 10% of people hating on the work on social media, saying, "Oh yeah, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that?" I never responded, but I had 90% loving the work. So if I was looking for validation, I'll still look at those 10% and wonder why they're saying all those things, but I don't care, because that's still opinions. So no, I won't say validation. I'll just say I was happy about it.
Okay, so what fuels you in terms of like your work? So you put out your work, it's good. What you put out your work, it's good, it's acclaimed. Then what makes you happy? It's not validation.
No, so the fact that
I think what I'm trying to ask is, how do you validate yourself?
So how do I explain this? I'm sure you've heard about Basquiat. Do you know Basquiat, the artist? Basquiat I think he died in 1989 or 1991. He's a black artist in America. Very weird. He does mostly very abstract things that look like jargons. But he's literally was one of the most acclaimed artists in that time. There's the same person that Jay-Z bought his artwork for like $3.5 million some years ago. When you look at his work, you think it's jargons. However, because of the fact that people could understand where he came from, it wasn't about validation, it was about resonating, it was about connecting. That's what's made him happy. For me, I've had over 5 to 10,000 messages around the world from people that are praying for me, that are thanking me, that are telling me that their grandparent is, I'm a 70-year-old man, this has done this for me. So that alone is the connection with people, that they understand the message I'm putting out there. And it's just me understanding that this can touch people in the right way. You can pass the message in the right way. And that's why I said when storytelling is a backbone for everything I do is intentional, because storytelling shapes the world. Hollywood shaped the world, whether you like it or not. With the films, the music, everything, that was what shaped where we are today. Costuming, the way we speak, if you think about it. And that's very powerful when you think about how that could shape mindsets, how that could shape a community or, affect decision making. You understand? So that's where my happiness came from, or excitement came from.
I want to talk about if there are going to be a regulation around intellectual property, particularly from art created by AI.
Yeah.
If there was going to be a framework, what would you say the regulation should look like?
As long as it's
what
original.
I'm asking is, what do you, as a player in this space, what do you need by way of regulation?
First of all, the ethical side is very key. Whatever you're doing, as long as you're ethical about it, in terms of you're not copying someone's art or taking someone's work to do yours. The AI learns from the internet, learns from people, learns from features, from data in essence. So it's very easy for it to take someone else's work to create us. But when you actually notice what's happening and this depends on you to say, this is not what I want. When you're trying to create something entirely new with AI, you're on the right path in terms of it doesn't exist anywhere. But when you're trying to create something that looks like a particular painting, if that particular painting is your personal style, then that's different. So, and the ethical part, the regulations which should come in, as long as it's precise, it's original, it's ethical, all those little key things. If they check the boxes, I feel that's when you can say okay, because most people do paint overs. That's paint over means you create an artwork with AI and you paint over it. Just use it as a baseline. I know artists in Brazil that are doing that, and a bunch of other places that do it just to enhance their work. You understand? So it all depends on the user at the end of the day, but the regulations is definitely going to be like a regulated body, and it's going to come into play. Definitely, I'm very sure of that, because you can't fight tech, you can't fight innovation. But before we get there, the backlash, the pullbacks will always definitely happen.
Are you one of those people who are like, regulation is coming to like kill my creativity?
No, because I don't depend on
But
it.
you know, there's that narrative. They're like,
No, no,
people
no.
are like, we don't want regulation; it kills creativity.
No, I know there is, but it doesn't affect me in either way. Because when it comes to the arts, the AI, it for me is experimental and for me is therapeutic. It's not like a career I'm building out there to say I'm an AI artist or anything. I'm a filmmaker. That's what I do. So but I'm also a storyteller and I try to express myself any which way possible, whether it's AI, 3D, even by paintings. I would do that if I'm in that space. You get, so I don't feel regulations affect personally, as long as it doesn't restrict my creativity. I'm good.
So, final question: when should we expect the movie?
I can't speak about that right now. We're still in pre-production, and still in conversation. So, but soon.
So, when should we expect the next work?
So, when you say next work, I talk about the AI work or
AI work, anything else?
just look out for me. You'll see a few things. I have 3 projects coming out on Netflix this year, 2 documentaries and 1 TV show. And as for March and up, and I have a docu-series also coming out towards the end of the year. So that's my day-to-day thing. But when it comes to the AI thing, I have exhibitions that we're going to be doing around the world. Hopefully bring the fashion show to life as well. I have a NFT show in Brazil, another one in America as well, coming up, that we're still coming conversation with, and in Paris as well. So all these things are the follow-up of what I've done for the fashion show.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Margaret.
You're welcome.